YouTube in a few minutes. Okay, now we are live on YouTube and Twitch and Twitter. So we are global.
God. Global,
Yeah.
So many channels, universal.
Yeah, I don't know. Should we just get started with the whole thing?
The power of the internet.
Okay, so let's get started. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us again. We are back with another episode. I guess I would say it's an episode of our usual live streams. And today we have like a really, really interesting set of people here to talk about what or how Cloud Foundry is empowering their team. And of course, I'm with my colleague Ram. Ram is here from India, and I'm here from Nigeria, so which is in Africa. With me, I also have Mark. So Mark is a product manager at the gov.uk PaaS. So Mark is going to be telling us about how Cloud Foundry is empowering their team at gov.uk PaaS. And I also have Rafael, who chooses to remain anonymous. Rafael is a senior developer, I think. Yeah, he's a senior developer at the gov.uk PaaS, and he will be accompanying Mark to talk about how CF is empowering their team. So over to Ram. Take it over.
Hey, everybody. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to
the usual.
You all, because people are joining us from different parts of the world. And a good day to those who will be viewing the stream in retrospect. So we have a one guest with us here today, Mark Buckley from the gov.uk PaaS team. And joining him is Rafael, and he is a senior developer also on the gov.uk PaaS team. So they go by @GDS team on Twitter. And obviously the main reason we have them here today with us is because they're users of Cloud Foundry. But I think the bigger story here that we're here to sort of share with all of you is how they're able to envision and build and provision all of these wonderful government initiatives, and they're able to make a massive impact with a significantly small team. So as I was digging into doing some research about how big their team is, how many apps they own and things like that, it's actually a fairly small team that supports a huge spectrum of applications across several departments, across several verticals that do so many different things. So I was very curious about that story. I was very impressed by that story after I heard it. And so I think it was only real for us to share all of that with all of you. And so that's what brings us here today. And rather than hear it from me, let's hear it from Mark and the other folks themselves. Welcome, Mark. Do you want to just introduce yourself very quickly?
Sure. Thanks, Ram. Thanks, Shadrach, for the introductions. My name is Mark Buckley. I am product manager on gov.uk platform as a service, or gov.uk PaaS, as we like to abbreviate it to. Rafael, do you want to come in from the shadows?
Sure. My name is Rafael. I'm a senior developer on gov.uk PaaS. Yeah, and we'll just take it from here, I suppose.
Great stuff. Ram, what would you best like? I mean, I've got some slides that I can kind of present to give a bit of an overview. So if that's okay, then I will just present my
share your
screen.
Let's do the slides, Mark. I think that's a perfect start.
Cool. Okay. Okay, so hopefully able to see my screen, gov.uk PaaS, and as we're talking about small teams making a big impact, I thought that would be an appropriate thing to label the presentation as. Cool. So before I kind of get into platform as a service, it's probably important to give a bit of kind of context as to, well, what Gov.uk is and where Rafal and I work. So Rafal and I are working in Government Digital Service, or GDS, which is part of the UK government. It's been around since sort of the early 2010s, I think 2012. And the sort of initial program of works, I suppose, that was created back then was the consolidation and migration of a whole plethora, myriad of websites and consolidated them into the one website that we know today as gov.uk. Just to put the sort of scale of that into kind of perspective, I think there were around 900 websites ultimately consolidated into what is gov.uk now. Off the back, I suppose, of that work, and because of that success, the digital strategy around transforming government to enable citizens to interact digitally with government was kind of enabled. And the next thing, or one of the next things, was what we refer to as government as a platform. So government as a platform, or GAP, as we're also fond of abbreviating it, was kind of started around 2015 and comprises the products that you see on the screen at the moment. So gov.uk Notify, our notifications platform, gov.uk Pay, which is a payments interface and product that allows citizens to pay online, gov.uk PaaS, that I'll be talking about extensively, and gov.uk Design System, that essentially is the front end and kind of on-brand user experience that government services in the UK all adhere to. We decided to embark on sort of these products. We did a lot of user research around what would be most beneficial to government departments, to know what were the things that their different government departments and different government arms are doing time and time again. They're all these kind of things. So they're having to send emails and notifications about potential services and things like that. They're having to procure payment platforms in order to be able to do e-commerce as part of the cloud strategy, or cloud first strategy, that was implemented around 2015. Then procuring hosting is another thing, and designing the websites and things themselves. So GDS decided to centralize all this, and as such enable sort of those efficiencies and benefits across the public sector by addressing these issues once in a central way and commoditizing it. Then services across government can then use these components to quickly, safely, securely create services that have a great user experience. So that's just sort of a bit of background to the historical context of why a platform as a service was created. Although this is a little out of date, these are the kind of most recent figures I could kind of get my hand on in terms of the benefits that these government as a platform products have provided. So you've got gov.uk in the middle that has provided, tens of millions, and this is just in one financial year. So the benefit to the taxpayer, but also government, is kind of palpable and visible. So we're over on the right, around £9 million worth of benefits that we've provided to the public sector by platform as a service and Cloud Foundry essentially being in existence. So that's great. But I think we've also grown heavily, so I can speak certainly around platform as a service to say that in the last year those £7.8 million worth of benefits have increased to around 12, so about a 40% increase in the last year on that. Yeah, we continue to grow and develop, add features, and hopefully get more and more tenants, and underpinned by Cloud Foundry and a lot of that expertise. So that's great. I will go into sort of a bit of the reason for us being, and essentially what Cloud Foundry and us and folks like Rafal from the engineering side enables other government departments. So, you know, whenever a service is designed and created, and policy folk around government are thinking about what they need to do in order to allow the citizen to interact with government, there are an underlying set of problems that will eventually or very quickly become pretty present for anyone that wants to run a service at scale. So finding web ops or site reliability engineers and infrastructure people is costly. They're not only to find the kind of right sort of talent, but to keep teams like that in employment. Procuring the appropriate hosting and related tools that has to be appropriate, I suppose, for government type services. As you might guess, UK Gov is very up on cybersecurity and making sure the infrastructure is assured and accredited and that kind of thing. So the procurement process can take an exorbitantly long time, which is sort of contrary to how folks obviously would like to do rapid and agile development. Then once potentially the service is kind of created, but managing that infrastructure and the deployments and making sure everything is patched and all of that, these are, you know, the life cycle of a service or an application that is being run is not just building it, it's running it, it's maintaining it, it's all of the extra stuff that needs to be go with it. These challenges, they're, you know, pretty common to almost all the services that are in existence around Gov. Service owners and people sometimes have to think about this, sometimes they don't. But the traditional way, I suppose, within certainly with UK government, is that teams would then procure components from different vendors or services, AWS, these type of things, and either have to get someone to manage it for them, or employ a team that can manage it themselves, which is why something like PaaS coming along is looking to solve that issue. This was sort of the problem around government before Gov.uk PaaS. So across the top, you've got an example of various different public sector bodies. So when I say public sector, I mean kind of any public service. So that might be a central government department, but it could also be potentially a local government body, a council, for instance. There could be a completely new department set up, such as when we were exiting the EU, that department was set up kind of overnight. And there are also sort of arm's length bodies, things like Highways England and things like that that manage some of the like transport and infrastructure around that. Now, what you had in these cases was every one of these departments also had numerous services that they needed to provide, and also various solutions. So you might have one department doing everything on one cloud-based hosting service. Lots of places are still doing things on bare metal and on-prem kind of infrastructure. And then you'll also have potentially legacy services and new services together, and like people having to run like a proliferation and always increasing different types of infrastructure and technology, which becomes, as you can imagine, very expensive. And in order to keep them running, quite often folks would get locked into expensive contracts and things like that with big suppliers. So what UK PaaS endeavoured to achieve and to try and sort of approach was, being that platform as well as a platform as a service that would be a single kind of reliable cloud hosting solution in public cloud, offer a marketplace of backing services, so different storage types and different types of services that can bind to applications to allow get their apps and data working together quickly. Not only that, because we are, by centralizing a lot of that sort of investment, then able to build on that with new features. So as things like within Cloud Foundry develop, we can pass on those benefits to our tenants by enabling them through our platform. As mentioned before, always kept up to date and secured. We respond to CVEs within a couple of days whenever they come around. And that makes the information assurance personnel around government very happy, because they know that that is being taken into account. What this means for the services and what this enables for our teams across government that might not have the resources or capacity to be able to have these multidisciplinary teams, they have less need to hire infrastructure engineers. They spend less time procuring and setting up infrastructure and building these services, because there's already an assured platform to build it on, and allows them to move kind of quickly and freely, so they can spend time iterating, building their applications, making sure that their service is meeting the needs of their user as far as possible, without having to worry about, I need to keep my operating system patched and all of that thing. So ultimately, we are a shared platform that service teams can use to host their applications in the cloud. We manage the infrastructure so that they can concentrate on building high quality services. And over the sort of 5 years ago, we've seen some great examples of the transformation of government and making it easier to build and run cloud native services. So this is probably more of a sort of marketing type slide, that when we're selling in the benefits of Government UK PaaS to other government departments, we're kind of like, look, you just have to manage the stuff at the top. If you just like build your application and deal with the APIs, we do all this good stuff down here at the bottom. And and we're clear about the kind of division of responsibility between that, but by looking after all of that kind of stuff underneath it, and enabling and offering things like the Cloud Foundry CLI and things like that, enables service teams to really get started quickly. So it's quite a kind of compelling business offer.
Sounds a lot like you folks are really pampering and spoiling your engineers. sorry for the interruption.
Well, I don't know if Rafal feels he's being pampered, but maybe our tenants are being pampered. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we this, and so this is. I'm not going to speak too much about this, as you folks are very familiar with kind of. You are all at Cloud Foundry, so this is all very familiar to you, and how Cloud Foundry using build packs and Bosch and what have you enables successful kind of creation and running of applications. I suppose our stack, as it were, as you know, and one of the reasons that Ram and Shadrach reached out to ourselves, we are built on Cloud Foundry. We use Bosch to abstract our tenants and abstract our users away from the underlying infrastructure, and we deploy this all using Concourse CI. I don't know whether, Rafal, you'd like to kind of say anything about maybe the interplay between Cloud Foundry and Bosch, or like how maybe we interact with Cloud Foundry to work with upstream and things like that?
For majority of the thing, we deploy CF deployment. We have very few components that we override ourselves for different needs of our users. For example, UA, we kind of forked it for the time being and are providing like 2 or 3 extra features. Other than that, like, it's pretty raw Cloud Foundry that is essentially managed with Bosch and deployed with Concourse, as Mark said. Yeah.
Nice.
Cool. So I suppose from a higher level kind of thing, by using Bosch to deploy things, offering tenants the opportunity of CF push, which was pretty radical, I think, back when, certainly when we kind of started, that they could push an application and it is running on the internet in minutes. It provides immense kind of business value, and previously there were certainly like instances and things that I've heard from our tenants that they would have to kind of go to IT and operations, provision, or procure and provision an environment, things like this, and all of this can take absolutely weeks. Whereas with CF Push and Bosch, then it's a lot simpler. So yeah, as you know, this is Bosch. This is what we use it for. This layer and Bosch is completely invisible to the tenant. We don't expose Bosch at all to our tenants. I believe that's correct. But then with CF Push and the command line interface, we do expose that, and so we have tenants that are interacting directly with the CLI, and yeah, we just use the CF CLI. So we expose all of those commands, and we generally just take a fork, or a forked pretty much Cloud Foundry documentation and things like that. And once users and tenants are kind of used to it, the feedback is usually resoundingly kind of positive. There is, I feel, and from speaking to our tenants, Cloud Foundry is definitely fulfilling a real niche in the market in terms of a compelling and very user-friendly developer experience that we haven't really come across in other technologies and things like that. Was the main reason sort of we went for Cloud Foundry in the first place. This might be a bit overkill. This is sort of our architecture of the environment and how it's kind of set up. So end users access services using a web browser, as you expect. Developers access the service either via a web browser. We have an admin console, PaaSmin as we call it, or by accessing the API using custom written code or using the CLI. Inbound traffic flows through load balancers. They have AWS Shield Advanced enabled to protect the platform. Requests are passed to the router, determining where to forward traffic to, and which of the cells is responsible for running that tenant's application. The router to applications running on cells. These are EC2 resources. Applications on the cells may contact private applications on other cells for backing services off the internet, as it were. API requests pass through the load balancer to Cloud Controller. And Cloud Controller is responsible for managing all the API requests for platform actions. Wondering kind of, do you want to explain anything more around the Cloud Foundry control plane referral or maybe our sort of broker model?
As you said, it's probably an overkill, but yeah, essentially we deploy a few brokers on top of Cloud Foundry and some others with Bosch itself. And those are essentially, standard brokers just interacting with external services. Like one of them is Avon, just to provide few marketplace options for our tenants. Some of them are more direct, like RDS or S3 SQS brokers that will just directly interact with our AWS account just to create those. Yeah, I don't think there's much to it. Like it's pretty much standard architecture from Cloud Foundry, to be honest. There's not much magic we introduce.
Yeah, so Diego for scheduling workloads, Logaggregator for accessing logs, debugging, and we use Autoscaler, the Autoscaler as well, pretty much straight out of the box. So yeah, the sort of size of it, I suppose, or how we kind of set it up. We started our first kind of foundry, as it were, was in Dublin. So EU West 1. I'm not sure if that's 1 or 2. I think it's 1 on AWS, but we have 3 availability zones. We then, so that, if there was any issues, that we could fail over gracefully into other availability zones. And then due to this small thing called Brexit and data sovereignty, some of our tenants were like, oh, it's got to be hosted in London, it's got to be hosted in London. And so we basically duplicated our foundry, and now we have 2, Dublin and London, which potentially allows us a lot of resilience if people are savvy enough to run things over both regions. But generally speaking, all of any new tenants and a lot of existing tenants have all migrated onto the London region, and that is our primary foundry now. I can't remember sort of the size or is sort of the number kind of cells, only that London is a good sort of 60% bigger, I think, than Dublin.
We just increased numbers of cells in London to 102 today. So that's a lot of machines, yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of machines. Our bills are high.
Yep. Yeah, it is. It's really nice to see.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been a lot of years in the making, Shadrach, and Yeah, so we try, I suppose, now using the resources we have to support our tenants and users from the whole sort of user journey or life cycle, I suppose, is more appropriate, from sort of becoming aware that a team needs to find somewhere to host an application, through to supporting them in terms of evaluating its use. So some of our documentation, how we meet security principles, how we meet IA and service level agreements. We also potentially help them with onboarding in terms of our documentation, make all of the sort of common commands and the CFCLI very kind of easy to interpret. And we, as mentioned, we have this, I'll show you in a minute, the PaaSmin interface online where you can sign up for a PaaS account that connects directly to UAA in order to create sort of user accounts as part of Cloud Foundry. And then enabling the sort of running and maintaining, enable people to scale, and if necessary, once a service is no longer required, we offer that facility as well. So we're a sort of full life cycle service, and these are the sort of touch points, I suppose, that tenants and prospective tenants will come to. So we have a full kind of web interface, which is a cloud.service.gov.uk if anyone would like to have a look. There you can view our sort of pricing and the backing services, as well as sign up for it, manage your team permissions, and that kind of thing. There's also technical documentation. Bottom left is representing the CLI, the developers will interact with. And we also offer some things like backing service metrics in the admin console, so that they're not I suppose the fidelity that I'm sure engineers on the call would expect, but they allow a kind of nice overview of things to see when people might be approaching capacity of databases, or increased 500 errors and things like that. So that's useful for them. And for the other side of business, how much does it cost, and we'll have a billing interface. So it's a pretty kind of rounded product offering. So our kind of, I suppose, main motivations and what we enable teams to do, most commonly, I suppose, is either a team that needs to launch a service quickly. They have either, as I say, like a department's been stood up overnight and they need to get something out quickly, or sort of a more considered approach is when we have solution architects, technical architects wanting to consolidate onto sort of more consistent, a more consistent platform, so that there are no sort of surprises and they're not having to run myriad different infrastructures. Because of the type of service and digital experience that government tends to offer, we're probably we're a good fit for probably in excess of 80% of digital services. They could all probably, if they were so inclined, should I say, because they're not mandated to use this, if they were so inclined, they could all create 3-tier typical services backed with a database that would live very happily on PaaS. There are also things, obviously, technologies change, trends change, that don't necessarily fit perfectly on PaaS, but for the vast majority of stuff in government, we're solid. These are just some of the kind of user needs or challenges that we look to address, and look to address them through our documentation, I suppose, or through feature development and user research in order to deliver a service to them that can meet their needs. But ultimately, so we try to create a platform that makes it easier to securely and reliably run services with fewer operations and site reliability engineers as possible, and so that they don't have to get involved in the infrastructure. We want to make it a developer-friendly experience so they can move quickly, iterate on their designs and get something out, something that adheres to the government service standard, which is sort of the governance process that all services in government have to go through in order to continue to get funding and go live. And we look to do this obviously in the most cost-effective way, to be the best benefit for the taxpayer, and also by providing a platform stops the proliferation of every government department creating their own cloud platform. That's in essence the sort of premise and the purpose of what we're for. As such, we now have lots and lots of tenants from sort of all across the public sector. So international trade, cabinet office, home office, various folks and various services from these, but also not necessarily the central government. So Civil Aviation Authority is a public funded corporation. I don't actually know in terms of the government that technically looks after UK Civil Aviation Authority, but they are the governance of our skies, and make sure that aviation operators are doing things appropriately. The CAA service that is on PaaS is for registering and educating yourself about drones and model aircraft. So
wow.
Okay,
it's pretty interesting, like to see all the CF like presently serving all this, important sector of the UK government. It's really, really interesting, and we're basically making an impact, and I love that.
It's a big impact, and I'll get on to some of the kind of the biggest ones. So over in the right, we've got flying drones and model aircraft. We've got but up kind of front and center, top middle. So gov.uk Notify, our notifications platform, actually lives on PaaS. So we're eating our own dog food, so to speak. We're able to host that. And the top right one was top left one, sorry, getting support if you're clinically extremely vulnerable to coronavirus. This was a service that was stood up within 4 days at the beginning of the pandemic. And between it going between the sort of first pull request and the first care package getting delivered to shielding people was only I think like 7 days in total. The service itself was live within like 4 days. And that's been made possible only because of PaaS and Cloud Foundry providing that and being able to move that swiftly and reliably. If it wasn't quick and safe, then people wouldn't use it. But because it's been assured and accredited by Cabinet Office, people know that it is and is run by us. So this is it's not just PaaS. I hasten to add, Notify. There is a article about this on that blog that can be searched, but so Notify, shortly after the pandemic started, the NHS, who were already using Notify, but they decided to use Notify for all of the notifications around test and trace, and getting COVID tests and things like that. And they went from something like their busiest ever day being 2 million to scaling up to like 25 million a day, like within like a week. And that's,
wow.
And ultimately that's underpinned by technology, Cloud Foundry, all being to make this and to enable this. So it's great. We've been growing consistently. I think kind of probably clearish to see that sort of there is an increase in that gradient from around the start of March last year, and that's definitely as a result of being able to so here we are on, this is the pink bar is the beginning of March 2020, and there's been sort of a pretty marked increase in growth rate of folks using platform as a service as a result of either needing to stand up services quickly as a result of the pandemic, either because they're new services, or migrating things online because people are no longer in offices and able to offer these things in person. What I quickly sort of go over this, because I suppose from a sales point of view, and what government services sort of care about, this is how
I'm pretty much interested in this.
Yeah, this is how we sort of sell our benefits case and how we break down. So yes, you have avoided build costs because either services will have to build and procure their own platforms or their own infrastructure, procurement from the open market, or the G-Cloud and digital marketplace can take up to 6 months, plus whatever build time there is for that infrastructure and that in-house solution. PaaS has done that. You can just take PaaS off the shelf, and you don't have to worry about them. The daily maintenance costs is truly kind of where we see and deliver most benefit to government, because from individual government departments needing to employ engineers that are appropriate and competent in kind of doing this is expensive. Keeping them securely patched, up to date, running efficiently, support, you name it, that's very expensive. And so being able to lessen that burden by offering PaaS is great. Because of our scale, we can offer potentially cheaper cloud resource costs. We do a lot of reserved instances and things like that, so they can benefit from that. Avoided need for procurement and information assurance that is probably something pretty unique to government services, in terms of, I don't know how many other folks that are using Cloud Foundry have to think about this as much, but making sure everything is able to host personal data up to official sensitive in government parlance is very important to our stakeholders. Some of the sort of softer benefits, I suppose, that one gets from using PaaS and Cloud Foundry, because we have that expertise and the team that runs it and the Cloud Foundry community and open source projects behind it, then you have that sort of trickle down of increased maturity of offer, enabling new features, and you folks spending so much time on enabling that great developer experience and things like that. So some of those, so while we might not be able to measure it directly, I think it's obvious, hopefully, for everyone to see how much sort of value Cloud Foundry has brought by offering the open source projects and community that we do. We have a public roadmap, which is sort of how we decide what to, or one of the ways we decide in which how to prioritize things. It's on GitHub if anyone wants to kind of look. This is old, but it's there. And yeah, this is sort of hopefully the sort of as we are underpinning part of GAP, then government services can host on us, design it on brand, take payments, offer notifications in a reliable, successful, and secure way. So yeah, I think that's been sort of evident to see. Quickly, because appreciate that potentially coming to time, maybe not. I don't know how much time do I have, Ram? Shadrach, am I okay? Do you want me to shut up?
Oh no, you're doing fine. Go on, Mark. No problem.
Cool. So at the beginning of the year, we were actually a few less than this in a few different phases. But sort of this has been the makeup. We were about at max 15. We have grown very quickly actually in the last few months. I did sort of a stock take, register, and we're approaching now 24 people. We've got some people joining, but up until sort of the beginning of the year, Rafael might be able to correct me, but I think we were 2 developers, 4 or 5 SREs, including a tech lead, and 1 primarily front-end developer. And hopefully in a not too far distant future, we'll kind of expand that probably to 8 SREs, 3 or 4 developers, and the tech lead. So, which for us will be a massive increase in our engineering capacity and things like that, and that would be great.
Nice.
I mean, bearing in mind, we've already been sort of as I say, hosting services from around 200 organizations, including things like Notify that are sending billions of messages a year. There's some really sort of critical stuff on there, and the fact that we've been doing that with like around 10 people, it's not necessarily been easy. It's been quite hairy at times, but it's been very rewarding, and hopefully I'm sure as engineers yourself, you understand or can understand the struggle sometimes to make it visible what it is that and how integral the infrastructure and things and what Cloud Foundry provides. It's not something that's easily visible and you can point to and say this is what we do, but without it, the internet keels over, and I have very angry people on the phone being like, why can't we do any trade internationally anymore? So and that's a lot of that's underpinned with Cloud Foundry and things like that. So it's been a good partnership in that regards. Needs evolve, so must the products. So just sort of to say kind of what the future I think holds for us. We are keeping a keen eye on Cloud Foundry understanding kind of what the future of Bosch is and what the future with Kubernetes and things might entail. So we're keeping open-minded around that. As mentioned, we have a whole ecosystem, and B, a whole user base that will need to move with us, I suppose. So we are currently embarking on what we think sort of should be the next steps, how we mature with the evolving needs of our community, of our tenant base, but also the evolving needs of hosting generally. What are the trends that, as Shadrach was mentioning, that we need to be mindful of and keep up to date, because otherwise we become the legacy technology, and then we'll have to kind of see what happens from that regard. But yeah, so I suppose, governments historically and generally don't move particularly quickly. So I'm not saying that the successor or what we decide to do will be in the next 3, 4, or even 6 months, but we'll keep abreast of the Cloud Foundry Foundation and the community, and hopefully share some learnings and understand from where you're going, or where we want to go, and hopefully carve a path together so that we can offer a platform that's fit for purpose for many years to come. So yeah, I think that's really sort of it's all I'd prepared, for sure, and all I wanted to say. But hopefully that gives you sort of a bit of a overview and understanding into what Rafal and I do every day. And I'd be happy if there are questions or what now? What would you folks like?
So we usually check if there are questions, but I'm looking at all our channels and it seems like there's no question, which is totally fine. It seems like that means your presentation was really, really good and clear, that nobody had any single question, because they got all the answers to their question in the presentation. So that's one way we can think about it, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I'll take it that way, Shadrach, rather than like, oh my God, I'm so bored, stop talking, I'm not going to ask any questions.
Nah, you're just that good that people don't need to ask questions because your presentation is just really, really good. Yeah, so let's take it like that. Personally, I actually enjoyed it because it just shows how much impact Cloud Foundry is making in the world. Like for somewhere as big as the UK, serving like the government digital services like that much, just seeing this particular the technology in action just makes me really, really proud of the fact that I work with the foundation and I'm trying my best to put the gospel, let's say the gospel of Cloud Foundry out there and make more people adopt it, like the UK government and the UK got the UK PaaS. So it's like a really, really big deal, and I appreciate you for breaking it down, telling us everything we really need to know. Listing out the departments that sort of benefits from the Gov.uk PaaS also was really, really interesting and very, very good to see. So I appreciate that. That presentation was really, 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 really good. I definitely would look at it some other time and watch this video over again to know, okay, so I'm advocating for a technology that is being used by the UK. You know how big that is, and how it's working effortlessly, and there's no downtime, there's no stress for developers that are coming on board. So that's something to be proud of. So thank you for doing that, Mark. I really, really appreciate that. Ram, do you have anything to say? Just so we don't spend too much time trying to talk much.
Yeah, I think that was a wonderful summary of what the government as a platform means. I really love that term. I'm going to tweet about it 5 times this week. But it's very heartening to see what Cloud Foundry, the technology, and the Cloud Foundry community at large, to be honest, has been able to deliver. Now, obviously, it was not built in a day. It's taken years of efforts from so many different people, and it's just, again, just so warm and so heartening to just watch the story play out and make something come alive at government scale. Now, I just wanted to dig a little bit deeper in the little time that we have about what does a footprint look like for a particular department. Like, what's it like with one of your tenants? Do they have like a few websites, few apps? Can you put a number to it? What's their team size like?
So it varies immensely. So some of our biggest tenants are essentially they have hundreds of applications and many services. I mean, so the two foundries, Dublin and London together, there's around 2,500 running applications. Obviously, an application is not a service, but it gives you sort of the scale that we're talking about. And but people vary from things like some smaller departments might just be running a couple of prototypes and a tiny amount of compute, up to some departments are essentially going gov.uk PaaS first and trying to put all of their digital estate on, and doing things like their single sign-on, some of their CRM systems.
Nice.
Lots of this all on PaaS, and they're spending tens of thousands of pounds a month. So, but what we have, the sort of the services or the departments at that end of the scale, as in they're all in on PaaS. They generally also have pretty sort of mature SRE capabilities themselves and their own operations capabilities. Although by using PaaS, it supplements that massively. So instead of having 12 engineers, they can have 2, kind of thing, to look after the infrastructure. But at the other end, you've got folks that we're enabling them to deliver applications and run them without having any operations kind of capability at all, or at least no dedicated capability. So, and we've, and from various sort of stakeholder interviews and things like that, we know that we've not only saved them like thousands of pounds, but also weeks and weeks of either training or development expertise, and enabling them to maintain and run services in a sustainable fashion, rather than getting an agency or a supplier to build it and then being stuck with them forever because they can't run it themselves. But having something like PaaS, and that enables them to do that at a fraction of the cost. So there are lots of benefits, or like to be had at every sort of part of the stack, as it were.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think I can go on and on, but in the interest of time, I think it's a good point to conclude. But Mark, you and the team are building like infrastructure of the present and envisioning infrastructure of the future on behalf of like so many different government agencies and things like that, and on behalf of the larger Cloud Foundry community. And one of the things that you did note in your presentation is, evolving into the future. And as a community and as part of the Cloud Foundry Foundation, I think we are also on a very interesting path in terms of incorporating the latest sort of elements from cloud native infrastructure into the Cloud Foundry experience. And we're also evolving the platform. So specifically, there's a lot of effort that's going into making Cloud Foundry available for Kubernetes infrastructure, and we're watching like the first successful rollouts in like government scale operations and things like that. And we're definitely going to bring that to your doorstep. And I think the journey should continue. It should evolve, and it should become bigger, and just help serve like a lot more folks at large. So, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you, Rafael, for your experience. And
as you'll see just over there, that's the gherkin.
The gherkin,
I'm back in the office for like the first time in, well, I've only been in like 3 times in the last year, and we've got Leadenhall building just there. So if you can bring if you can bring the future to my doorstep, Ram, we're just round the corner from that. So
sure, that's some very needed motivation. So thank you. I'll definitely take you up on that offer. But yeah, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing all of that information and experience and the Cloud Foundry story.
That's okay.
I don't know, but
I was just going to say, thank you both for we enjoy being part of the community. That's the joy of sort of open source and things like that. But also, I'm the only one with a face on this stream, but thanks.
Rafael remains.
Thank you for joining, for sure, as one of the longest standing members of Gov.uk PaaS, but also the whole expanding team on Gov.uk PaaS, and that's not just engineers. We've got lots of user-centered design and product and delivery management. So it takes a lot of work, but as you've hopefully just understood some of the benefits of it, so it's great.
Yeah, that's dope. So thank you for this. Like, I really enjoyed it. I mean, it was really an eye-opener to see how many important communities that the Cloud Foundry technology store is serving. So it was really an eye-opener. So thank you for doing this. And I don't know if nobody noticed, but Shajak did not talk today. That'll probably be in the next live stream. I usually talk a lot at this live stream, but today I was like really quiet because I wanted to like learn from like what you've been saying. So maybe next time you will see a lot of my trolling of RAM and banter, etc. But today it was just like more about learning. So
okay, well, next time we'll have some more back and forth, Shadrach. Then it's less just me talking. But thank you thanks for the opportunity. It's good.
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, anytime, man. Anytime, sure thing. Yeah, so I think with that, if there are no questions, I just checked the YouTube stream and okay. So how often? I just saw a question. I don't know if it's actually So someone said, how often do you upgrade or patch, if I'm not mistaken?
We have, so some of the cadence of our kind of meetings, we have sort of a monthly meeting where we look at all of the upgrades that have happened to the various components that month. So not only like Cloud Foundry, so obviously the build packs and things like that, Cloud Foundry itself, but also the backing services that we enable to make sure to upgrade and patch them. But also we respond to CVEs and things like that come in sort of as soon as possible. We have targets to kind of deal with any CVEs within sort of 5 days. But generally we're trying to get onto sort of a monthly cadence at least for some of these things. Just so that we don't start sort of wading through our own tech debt and things like that. So and get behind. Usually we at least meet about it monthly, CVEs as soon as they come in.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that about answers the question. Since there are no more questions, let's not go ahead of time and just call it a day. Thank you so much, Mark and Rafael, for doing this. And of course, thank you, Ram, for coming on. I know it's pretty late at where you are. So Thank you for doing this every time. And yeah, so that's pretty much the end of this live stream. We'll be back in like 2 weeks, probably, or a week. Fingers crossed. For with some other different topic, but I personally enjoy this particular one. Thank you, Mark and Rafael and Ram and the Cloud Foundry community. Thank you for always doing making the Cloud Foundry technology scalable and welcoming. So yeah, that's pretty much it for today. Thank you, everybody. And I feel like I'm seeing a lot of thank yous, but I'm actually very, very much grateful for the Cloud Foundry community and every single person that comes on, live streams and, try to, spread the word about Cloud Foundry. So I'm very, very grateful about that. And also grateful about being part of the community, which is like a big deal for me. So yeah, thank you, everybody. And bye. See you next in a few weeks, in a few days, rather.
Just a quick reminder
Uh-huh.
about the Cloud Foundry Summit that's happening on July 21st and 22nd. So if you enjoyed stuff on the stream, then there's like a lot more content that the summit has to offer for you. So definitely don't miss out on that. Schedule and agenda stuff is expected to be out this week. So watch out for that as well.
I thank you, Ram, for reminding me. I sort of forgot for a second, but yeah, the live stream, the Cloud Foundry Summit is coming on. Coming soon. So do well to register and attend the talks. A lot of really, really exciting talks that will be there. So yeah, bye everybody, and have a great afternoon.